Are there any comments, thoughts, or observations?
Well, somebody's going to have to kill that baby before they have an abortion. It's still alive before they have a.
Yep.
Well, they not go. New York, they're not going to charge them for.
Nope.
Well, what's going to happen to all these people down here in the different states going to go up there and have an abortion? They ain't going to be charged. Or what, they just throw them in a dumpster?
Yes, that's what they do. Not going to do a thing, Benny. And life is so cheap. Back in the early 80s, there was a group, I can't remember, the Family Association used to buy ads. I remember this because as a student at Johnson Bible College in Knoxville, Tennessee, they would actually, it was gruesome, they would actually show the pieces when the child is torn up and sucked out into a bucket. That child, you see body parts, heads, arms, that's exactly what they do. Callous, ghoulish, that's exactly what they do. Matter of fact, Benny, I wish they would do this out in public and people would see it. I think they would have a different view of what abortion is and what it does. But no, they will not be prosecuted for that, Benny, and they should be.
I have an observation about being a virtual human being.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a baby. All of us were one time, whether we remember it or not. A virtual human being is one that can live on its own. Now, that baby's alive underwater,
mm-hmm.
encapsulated in water.
Mm-hmm.
That baby can live and do something that you and I can't do. You and I can't live underwater.
That's correct.
Without a breathing apparatus, or we'll die.
Yes.
We'll drown. But then that baby, they say, well, that baby is not a virtual human being until it takes its first breath. Why not? It's living encapsulated in water when you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do it, then that makes them more a virtual human being than I am.
That's right. But the water is not in the lungs of the child.
That's right.
A lot of times it's the mucus, and that has to be removed, and the child could breathe. But it is the mother. But that child has a heart of its own, circulatory system of its own. When we talk about the umbilical cord and the sac of water, of course, that child can thrive. And it is important because if the child is too large, especially the head, right? That can be very difficult. It can be dangerous. It can even be deadly for the woman to carry, to term, right?
A breech birth is the same way. If the feet come out first, makes it very difficult without major surgery.
That's right.
To save the baby and sometimes the mother too. But when I talk about a virtual human being, I still say that a baby unborn can live under circumstances that you and I can't live.
Right.
And yet we want to judge them as being not a virtual human being, but we are.
Yes.
I mean, that to me, that's absolutely ludicrous.
Well, that goes along with what Benny asked, because in the criminal codes, and each state has its own constitution, the person has to be redefined, because like Minnesota, look at theirs, in Missouri, different. Some of the language is different, but the concept is the same. You're going to have to redefine what this is. Is an infant a person, yes or no? They'll say no the first 2 trimesters, and now this law is saying no in the 3rd trimester. And this is something that is not logical, because how can it be a person then in the 3rd trimester, and then just by a cultural wanting and desiring that this becomes not a person until it's born.
In that 3rd trimester,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be very possible for something to happen to the mother, and the baby still could live.
Yes.
I mean, they could do a C-section or whatever.
Yes.
The mother in an automobile accident, no matter what happened,
Yes.
she gets some kind of brain disorder or something.
Mm-hmm.
That baby still is a virtual human being, and that by nature of the fact that it can live independent of the mother,
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not come to term yet. What we call terms,
Yes.
we're the ones who determine terms,
Yes.
not God. God didn't determine. I don't even remember studying where the Bible told us all of the situation about, you'll have 3 trimesters, and then in the 9th month it'll be born. I don't read that in the Bible anywhere.
No.
I just don't get it.
No.
So those are determinations that the medical world's made.
But you do find in the scripture where God made them male and female.
Sure.
And that children would be born.
Right.
And we have, not just here, we have several other passages where it is in the womb. God recognized that person, that life in the womb. And of course, understanding what birthing or being born is. So you're right, we don't find the term trimester, but we do find life, we do find these kinds of words. And that does coincide with science, because again, what is this? Is this like a 14-pound mole? No. It is a viable human. Yes.
Well, that's the steps it has to take to become a human being. I mean,
right.
If you're going to start killing them all before they're ever born, how you going to ever have another human?
That's right. That's right. Well, I think some of them would like that, Benny. And I'm trying to make a point, and as well as you ladies that have had children. Think back in history, and it's not too terribly long ago, 80 years ago or so, when you had the Third Reich, and some of the things that the Nazi Party was doing, and with Jews and humankind and their experiments, Ghoulish, Goring, and others. And look at what's going on today in our backyard and how they're tearing up children. And in the 3rd trimester, again, I am not a woman, but our firstborn I delivered with my own hands. That is a child. That is a viable human being. That's not some body part. That's not something, some organ that needs to be extracted because of cancer. That is a human being, a separate human being than the mother. What do you women think about stuff like that?
What do you think about this person that's going to abort these children?
Many times it's a young girl. She feels that she has no options. But it still doesn't take away the fact that this is murder. And there are groups that try to rescue these children if these girls apply.
I'm talking about the doctor that...
Oh, the doctor?
That takes them apart.
Yes. There's... search this. And those of you in the viewing audience, Hippocrates lived in the 5th century. He was called the father of Western medicine. He was Greek. Matter of fact, a lot of your terms when it comes to the body and medicine are Greek, Dorian Greek. And the doctor, he or she, yes, this is something, they do it for the money. They might have a political agenda, right? But now it's not even doctors doing it. They're going to allow nurse practitioners. They're going to allow medical assistants. What are they going to do? We're going to go down to Kroger or some other place where they have a little clinic, and for $96 going to have an abortion? You asked a question. These people don't have a soul. They are wicked. They
don't have a conscience.
Yes, they do not have a conscience, because how would a person justify this? I mean, they couldn't think it's a human being. The Hippocratic Oath from Hippocrates. Most medical professionals take that. And you know what a statement is that they swear to? Do no harm. Do no harm. Yes, they are guilty of murder.
There would be no difference in taking that baby and then say I had one for 6-7 years old.
That's right.
But since I don't want but one, go ahead and kill that person.
Well, there's some thinking of that, Joan,
I know.
with this kind of group, and if we don't start there,
Murder's murder.
yes. What happens if the child's kind of troublesome or develops some kind of disease or something like that? Well, why stop there? I mean, if people have problems, we get old and we start getting aches and pains, well, why not at 75? Why not at 100?
Well, they are beginning to do that.
Yes, they are. And they're thinking that way.
Scary.
Yes.
But you take this argument that John's making, and I agree with you. Hippocratic Oath says they're supposed to be dedicated to the preservation of human life, to the saving of human life, and they swear to that. But like you said, these people don't have any soul about them. So that baby is just a commodity.
Yes.
It just represents a paycheck.
Yeah.
And they just really don't care. And you know what? We're catching up to China.
Mm-hmm.
China has been aborting babies for years and years because they only allocate like 1.8 children, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
They divide the number of populations and the number of girls and the number of boys. They determine then how many girls they need and how many boys they need without overpopulating, the country. And yet they tell a couple what they can and can't have. And if you do, they take that baby.
That's right. And we
I
are.
really believe that the money that they make from taking these babies is going to be blood on their hands.
That's right. Joan, it gets even worse. You have organizations, right, for abortion clinics, right? Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is actually pressing this around the world through the auspices of the United Nations. Now, you mentioned one communist country, Red China, the Chicons. Yeah. The UN is structured after that, very socialist/communist. And now they're the ones that are saying, and they're trying to capitalize upon these people that don't think that they're boys or girls or men or women. They're trapped in a man's body or woman's body. And these people, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
In my opinion, when you said Planned Parenthood, that is a plan between a mother and a father in a family situation as to how many they can provide for.
Yes.
How many they need, It's not some clinic out here that's supposed to do that for you.
That's right. But see, this is something with big government, where big government's in all aspects of our life, and they have the solution, and it's to tear that child out of the womb, right? And you're right, Joan, again, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but we've got people out here saying, well, men don't have any say in this. Well, they don't live in the real world because it is between a man and a woman. Now, hopefully they're married, but it's between a man and a woman. That doesn't take, I tell you what, we don't even have to teach rocket science about that, do we? We can figure that out, right? And they're telling us how to think, and we're going to do this whether you agree with it or not. Well, this causes trouble in a society. People will rebel against this. And you just can't go around, because someday they're going to come around to you and they're going to say, we're going to abort you. Oh, no. So it gets serious business. But think on it. What kind of mentality is it with this ghoulish?
Sick.
Very sick. And they'll say that they're the ones, and if you disagreed with this thinking, you're the one that has the problem of intelligence. You're the one that has the problem, of thinking this through. No. Mothers have a very natural instinct and desire to protect their children, right? Same thing with fathers.
In my opinion, and of course it's mine, and everyone's entitled to
Sure.
their own. But I think this is from the devil.
Absolutely. Yeah. From hell.
Why don't you look at the far-reaching? Here's something that we may not have thought about in the equation. Stem cell research has been going on for years now.
Yes.
They can grow an actual liver from the stem cells of a baby, from the placenta and other places. They honestly believe they can reproduce a human being and clone one The law's only things kept them from doing that.
Mhm.
Cloning a human being.
Yes.
Cloning makes an identical copy, and
Yes.
they've done it with animals.
Mhm.
And you know, it's sort of like getting a part for your car. You just head right down to the auto parts store and tell them what you want, and they get it off the shelf.
Yeah.
That's eventually what they're after in the medical world.
Yes.
Is to be able to replace a heart. And it's one of those things that happened in the Bible to start with. Man's desire to live forever on
Sure.
the earth.
Sure.
And so we're trying to perpetuate that sureness that we'll live longer and longer and longer and longer.
But you know, Jim, it gets better because they do stem cell research today. They can remove stem cells from your body, apply it like if your cartilage in your knee is worn out or other aspects of your body.
Regrow it.
And they can regrow it, and then you don't have problems like rejection and others with your own stem cells. But you're right, they're trying to capitalize upon this, but for the most part, when it comes to philosophy, when it comes to ethos, they try to weaponize this. And again, I'm usually trying to, even women, you get on there, somebody was on Huntsville, or they get on the television and talk about the sanctity of life. Even though you're a woman, they say you're anti-woman. No. People who believe and practice this are anti-women because they kill them. And that's always the option, is to kill, kill, kill. And it's just something ghoulish about tearing a human being apart with scissors and other tools. And a doctor has no soul, no heart, no understanding. And the people, these abortion clinics are privatized, and they'll offer their services, so to speak. And this isn't even something, this is sickness, and something that should be eradicated from our great land. God will not hold us. Remember in the Old Testament, when the children of Israel were going to overtake or take, God was going to dispossess where the Canaanites, the Jebusites, and what have you, in the land of Canaan. What was a practice of children, the use of children that God not only forbid, or forbade rather, but he also warned them not to be involved in? Remember the fire of Molech? And with children? And this is something today. And this is something in the spirit of Molech. Not reason, not necessity, but of ghoulishness to snuff out the lives of tens of millions of human beings, all in the name of being pro-choice. Very important.
I don't understand how any mother, any father, any human being that loves life, any Christian can be a part of that.
That's right. How can the child of God be a part of this? But
well, it just eats at me.
Sure.
All of that. You know.
And I look at these. Yeah.
A number of people that would love to have that baby.
And can't have children for one reason or another.
And they can't get them.
And
It takes forever to get.
That's right.
Adopt one.
That's right. And they got to go to Russia or something.
I know that Sally taught me a valuable lesson, because we were talking about a long time ago about abortion, and I said, well, you know, if somebody raped my grandchild,
Yes.
my granddaughter, I would have to have her to abort it. And Sally looked at me and said, but that's a human being.
That's right.
And somebody would want that baby.
And Joan,
And
that's right.
a ton of bricks that I had thought that all the time and was wrong.
And why not have legislation that we abort the rapist? What's wrong with that?
Why not kill him?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Due process and a rope at the end of his neck, and we won't have that problem. Isn't that right?
We're so sexually immoral in America.
Yes.
That an abortion is a way of removing the consequences
Yes.
of your sinful behavior. You know, it takes a lot to raise a child. It takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time. It requires, if a young girl is very young and she, through promiscuousness, goes ahead and gets impregnated, wants to have a baby, and then the parents want it aborted.
Yep.
You know, that's just a way of her escaping the consequences of her sin. And parents, matter of fact, they support them in that. That's what blows my mind. Even the parents agree to it. And that's what John was talking about.
It was thought of as abortion as being birth control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it is.
So what if you get pregnant? You can just abort.
That's right. That's right. And you know what's sad about this, church, is a lot of times it's the girl, the young woman, that bears the shame, or maybe it's not even a shame anymore, and not the boy. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a time where if a boy and girl were courting and she ended up, and I'll use it my father's term, in a family way, oh yeah, you're going to get married whether you like it or not, whether it's yours or not. And that really helps a lot of problems, because you're going to be very careful the kind of people you're going to associate with, right? But we're not even close to that in this country.
I think it's just as important to teach that boy
Yes.
his responsibility as it is that girl.
Yes. Yes. Handcuff him for 9 months. I think that'd be a good idea, right? Boys should face the same consequences as the girl, right?
Give me how this is going to work with the law of the land in New York when a drunk driver kills a mama who's going to have a baby. Are they going to charge him with one murder? Or
Nope. Nope. They're not going to charge him. At least how this is written so far, because in the third trimester that would have been true, and then they redefine what a person is after 24 weeks, and it was considered a person, and they could be charged 2, but it's just going to be 1, because that's not a person in the eyes of the law. And that's something. Isn't that something? We need to turn back, and it's not our personal views. It's going back to the book of books, going back to God. This is the answer. And again, when in society, marriage is a good thing. Marriage is something that should be taught in the home, other places. And there's nothing wrong with the consequence of a married couple having a child. And it's so sad to see when these are ripped out of mother's womb, where couples that physical reasons, one or another, cannot have children, but this is a viable option for people who want to have children. Oh my. It's a mess.
Looks to me like we are going full circle back to we call it the old Western days, when everybody was a law unto himself.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody took justice into his own hands, and they made decisions of life and death, based on what they thought about it, whether it was right or wrong, and everybody carried a weapon on their hip.
Yep.
We've gotten to the point in this country where I'm going to tell you, if I live to be 10 more years, the word marriage is a word that's going to be history.
Mm-hmm.
There will be no marriage.
Mm-hmm.
There will be no marriage, no reason to do it.
In comparison to the society. Yeah.
If in other words, the only thing you're getting off of is revenue now.
Mm-hmm.
They can find a way to replace that revenue.
Mm-hmm.
They will not have marriages.
No.
There'll be arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be, if you want to live together, fine. Mm-hmm. If you want to live for a while and be separated, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And now, of course, we got child support problems. It's unreal in this country now.
Wow. I don't know. Maybe we should, when we do marriage ceremonies, we start chaining them together. That's just a thought. But yet, as we think of these things, it's so important that we go back, and it's really not going back. It is something that people rediscover when it comes to the Bible, when it comes to Scripture. A much better life when people are married. A much better life when people obey the gospel, have care and concern for their fellow man, right? Then you don't have these problems. I think I told you this, church. I was at a congregation when I wasn't married, and they wanted me to deal with the benevolence, this and that. And I remember sometimes couples would be living together. You know who argued more for that? It wasn't the man. It was the woman. And they would say, well, we love one another. Well, that's not love being engaged in an action that the Bible tells us, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4, that marriage is to be held in honor above all, the bed undefiled, but God will judge the fornicator and the adulterer. That's not love. And we have a culture that the Bible sets forth where young people or older people, when they have care and concern for themselves, they enter into marriage, they have a family, they have care and concern. They also have care and concern for other children, other families. This is a good thing. In our culture, it's all about self. Drink the right beer, right? Liquor, what have you. Do this, do that. It's all selfish. And that comes from the devil. That comes from the devil.
Well, I saw Maury Povich by accident one day, and I thought, I've never heard this kind of stuff. The girl's 8th trip to the show, found out who her baby daddy was.
Yeah.
And then when they come to find out that after 7 that she accused of being the father, they still had to find an 8th one, so that was going to be their next show.
Yeah.
And you got Jerry Springer.
Yep.
I mean, I can't get over what we've tolerated in our lives, and we've let it just go crazy.
People like that. They like to see it.
A lot of that stuff they make up on those shows just to make a show.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not even true.
That's right.
They just do it to make a show.
But the thing is, too, is it's getting to the point where you got to have a sign out on the highway to take a paternity test to see who your daddy is. So that's sad, church. We need to go back to the book. Very appreciative of your comments, your thoughts, your observations. Those of you in the viewing audience, we hope you would take Bible in hand, pen and paper. If you have any questions, please contact us. Very appreciative of the comments. Thank you.